I feel like I've said this over the course of pretty much every video since the Rafael Devers trade, but there's a lot of things that we got to get into from not just today, but from yesterday as well. It's going to be a 2-day tango, so to say. So there will be no rambling introduction aside from the fact that I'm in the cable car, which I'm surprised as much as you are that it took me as long as it did for me to finally do one in here. So let's start with yesterday, or even let's go back a little bit further than that. Prior to yesterday, it wasn't a super big issue, but the amount of Giants that had been getting hit by pitches was slowly becoming an issue. They got hit twice the day of the Rafael Devers trade. Going into yesterday, Elliot Ramos had been hit 3 times during this homestand. Wilmer Flores had been hit during the homestand. There's somebody else who's escaping me. But the Giants were hit quite a good amount of times over a succession of days over the course of this homestand, and none of them were intentional. But that being said, when you're hit by a fast-moving projectile, regardless of whether it's intentional or not, they're entitled to feel a type of way. I remember Wilmer Flores kind of slammed his helmet after getting hit one time. I think Elliott was especially perturbed after one of them. But things really came to a head yesterday when the Giants were hit not once, not twice, but 3 times. Now, 2 of them were on breaking balls. Jung-Hoo Lee got hit in the foot. I think Dominic Smith also got hit in the foot. And Smith and Jung-Hoo didn't really have much of a reaction when it's on a breaking ball. Even the hardest breaking ball in the world, it's not super hard. But after the Marlins, Calvin Fouché hit Dominic Smith to lead off the 9th inning, on the very next pitch, I think it was a 95-mile-an-hour sinker, he hit infielder Casey Schmidt in the left wrist area with the sinker, and it was one of those where it's like you don't really have time to get out the way, and Schmidt just instantly, like he had nowhere to go, hits the wrist. He kind of pops out of the batter's box. I think he slammed the helmet. I can't remember if he did off the top of my head, but he's discarding the helmet, discarding like the thing that's on his hand. He's just in a lot of pain, and I think he had some words for Fouché. And again, none of these were intentional, especially given yesterday. It's a 2-run game. The Marlins are trying to win a ball game, but there was a very visible frustration with Schmidt as well as the rest of the Giants in that moment. And then after the game, well, even before going after the game, in the bottom of the 10th inning, as a result of being hit by the sinker, manager Bob Melvin was planning to pinch hit Brett Wisely for Casey Schmidt, and that never happened because Schmidt's spot in the lineup never came up. But he was planning on making that move just because Schmidt no longer had the capacity to grip a bat. So that leads into the post game, where the Giants as a collective were very frustrated with the amount of times that they had been hit in recent days. And again, if you kind of look at every single instance of them getting hit, none of them were intentional, but there was kind of a cryptic tone when the Giants were discussing this, and there was this line of thinking that was used, which is we have to protect our hitters. And Logan Webb in particular, when he was asked about that, and when he was asked about the amount of Giants that had been hit in recent days, he said something to the effect of, I think all things eventually even out. And to that answer, I replied with a counter question, how so? And he said that, our job as a pitching staff is to protect our hitters. And the last thing that Logan Webb said yesterday was he was hoping that today's game had a little bit of an edge to it. We talked to Elliot Ramos, who expressed his own frustration, had this line where he said, I can't remember the exact line of thing, but he said it's not regret or not retaliation, but we as an offense need to score so that the pitchers can protect us. We talked to Casey Schmidt. He said it's annoying, it's frustrating. But with all that being said, so going into today's game, it kind of felt like there was this underlying tension going into today's game where you knew at some point someone on the Marlins was likely going to get hit. And it happened pretty fast. It happened in the top of the first inning. Hayden Birdsong was the starter for the Giants today. He retired the first 2 hitters that he faced with a pair of pop flies. And on the 12th pitch of his outing, throws a 97.5 mile per hour fastball very inside, hits former Giant Otto Lopez in the thigh, somewhere in the lower leg. The umpiring crew immediately comes together. They talk for about a minute and a half. They issue out warnings to both teams, and then Marlins manager Clayton McCullough becomes incensed. He comes out of the dugout and ends up getting ejected. Again, 3 batters into the game. So that was kind of the Giants' means of, again, when we're talking about the ethos of protecting our hitters, that was the Giants' way of doing it, and the umpiring crew came together very quickly and ensured to make sure that it didn't escalate further. And if you look at a game like Toronto and Cleveland, for example, that's an example where things did kind of escalate more than just the initial hit by pitch, where things did become very intentional. After the first hit by pitch that happened, I think it was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. got hit, and then Jose Ramirez got hit shortly after. I can't remember if there were any ejections in the game, but that was the way that the Giants kind of set the tone, where it's like, again, we have to protect our hitters. And for the rest of the game, I'm kind of going to bounce back a little bit, but for the rest of the game, it was kind of a non-issue. I think there was one pitch to Rafael Devers in particular that was a little up and in, but again, in the context of the game, it wasn't really intentional. I think Devers kind of like snapped his head back, and instead of saying anything to the pitcher, just jogged to first, and that was the extent of that. And I think on the Giants side, the Giants pitchers had some pitches that were fairly inside as well, but again, nothing after that. But as far as, the Giants didn't call it retaliation, but as far as that sending of the message, if the Giants sent a message by plunking Otto Lopez, the Marlins in turn sent a message by scoring 5 unanswered runs, or at least to start the game. Well, they were answered, but they scored 5 runs to start the game. Following the hit by pitch, I want to say it was Agustin Ramirez hits like a 113 mile an hour double off the left field wall, just like bangs off the left field wall. Then Kyle Stowers hits one into the Marlins bullpen for a 3-run shot. And then the next inning, not the next inning, I think it's the 3rd inning, Ramirez sits on a hanging 0-2 slider and sends it 3/4 of the way up the left field bleachers. And it was one of those swings where he knew it off the bat. Hayden Birdsong knew it off the bat. Birdsong's body kind of like went limp after the swing, and Ramirez held the follow through. And it was the type of swing where it was worth holding a follow through. He kind of hit it to Big Cat territory, Andres Galarraga territory. So the Giants go down 5-0. They're able to crawl back into the game. Rafael Devers hits his 2nd homer as a Giant. He actually clears the Marlins bullpen with a 2-run shot. I think that's his 17th homer on the year. And then they score 3 runs in, I want to say, the bottom of the 5th inning when Jung-Hoo Lee leads off the inning with a triple that the Marlins right fielder dove and missed. Willy Adames follows that up with an RBI single. Christian Koss doubles, and then Brett Wisely doubles home Koss and Adames with a double off the right field wall, tying the game at 5 apiece. Then things spiraled very quickly for Birdsong in the 5th. So this is the 4th inning that the Giants scored the 3 runs, not the 5th inning. In the top of the 5th inning, Birdsong walks the first 2 batters that he faces. Bob Melvin goes to Spencer Bivens. Bivens strikes out the first 2 batters that he faces, then ultimately allows a 2-run double and an RBI single. All of a sudden, it's 8-5, and the Marlins take a lead that they eventually would no longer relinquish. Now, as far as the Wilmer Flores of it all in relation to today's game, the way this unfolded, and I'm going to get ahead of this now and say we did not have the opportunity to talk to Flores after the game. He was unavailable. I think he was kind of gone by the time we got into the clubhouse. But the way that this happened, it's the bottom of the 7th inning. I don't remember the name of the Marlins pitcher that he's facing, but strikes out, and instead of just walking back to the dugout, apparently somebody on the Marlins side, again, we don't know who, but somebody on the Marlins side said something that caught the attention of Flores. And instead of walking back to his dugout, now he's taken some very forceful steps in the direction of the Marlins dugout, and Willy Adames comes out really quickly to corral him. Jung-Hoo Lee comes out to corral him. And this whole episode lasted about 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Equanimity was pretty quickly restored. And again, I want to hammer home the point that we really don't know for sure who made who made Flores mad, what was said to make him mad. But Willy Adames did say after the game that if Wilmer Flores is that mad, something was probably said, because Flores, generally speaking, runs pretty cool, pretty even. Although this homestand in particular, between the hit by pitch, and I think there was the thing with Aroldis Chapman a couple days ago when that game ended. If you didn't know any context about Wilmer Flores prior to this homestand, you would actually think that he runs a lot hotter than he actually is. But that was kind of the defining scene of today's game. And again, when asked about what potentially happened after the game, manager Bob Melvin said that his guess is somebody said something. Adames said he didn't know. And again, Flores was not made available. As far as the hit by pitch of Otto Lopez, Melvin said it is what it is. It was pretty minor. And again, in the course of the game, it didn't escalate further than that. Again, in the context of beanballs, nobody else got hit. But that's where we stand. That's how the Giants end their 9-game homestand. They end up finishing this homestand with a 3-6 record. We're now at the 81-game mark of the season. We're exactly halfway through the 2025 season, my first season on the Giants beat. And the Giants are currently 44-37. They're a half game out of the final spot for the last spot for the NL wild card. And given some of the preseason projections for the Giants, probably doing better than a lot of people may have expected. Obviously, the Rafael Devers trade was not factored into that calculus. But again, 44-37, 7 games above 500 going into this 3-game trip. Well, not 3 games. It's this 9-game road trip against the Chicago White Sox, the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the team formerly known as the Oakland A's. And again, we have a lot of baseball left between now and the end of the season. A lot can change. It's not stretching the truth in any stretch of the imagination to say there have been a fair amount of surprises this year. I can't even compartmentalize the fact that we are at the halfway point. There's just been so much that has happened over the course of the season, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So 81 more games left to go in the regular season for the San Francisco Giants, and these next 81 games will determine whether their season ends in late September or whether they will be playing October baseball.